Burt Lancaster, named the most evil people who Hollywood has a golden years old. Burt Lancaster was born in Burton William Stevens on November 2, 1913, in Manhattan, New York City. He was one of the most famous and versatile artists of the best years of Hollywood. Born in East Harlem by parents from the working class, his father worked for the post office and his mother was a Lancaster was a mom who grew up in a tough Irish-American family that is close from a very young age. He showed athleticism and a strong sense of freedom and a natural charm that would later help him on stage and in movies. Went to Dwight Clinton High School in the Bronx and then to New York University on a scholarship for sports, where he did very well in basketball and gymnastics before getting a lot of attention as a Lancaster was a big man in Hollywood. First became famous as a dancer in a circus. Joined the K Brothers show in his early 20s and spent a few years traveling the country to perform as part of to do an acrobatic act with his old partner. This experience, not with my friend Nick Cravat, only improved his physical strength, to do his own tricks in a lot of his movies, but they also taught him a discipline and being there that carried the beginning of his acting career. Lancaster's the way to the big screen came in just by chance, after being in the U.S. Army during the Second World War in the services unit, where he had fun troops. They told him to try acting. His big break came in 1946 with The Killers, as a famous noir movie in which he played the doomed Swede in a way that right away established him as a strong and appealing new presence in Hollywood. He's in good shape. Sharp blue eyes and a strong screen. Lancaster became well known very quickly as the lead in movies in the late 1940s and 1950s. During the course of his work, Burt Lancaster turned out to be much more than he was just a good-looking action star of deeply committed to pushing himself as an artist, picking parts that didn't fit. He was in a lot of different movies. Types of movies. From film noir and adventure stories to socialized self-aware tales and close character studies. Some notable acts are his won an Oscar for his part as Elmer Gantry in the movie with the same name from 1960, passionate and angry account of a journey preacher. Other praised some movies are From Here to Eternity 1953, during which he gave one of movie's most memorable love scenes with What a Wonderful Smell. Success Is, by Deborah Kerr. Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962. And 1957. Decisions Made at Nuremberg 1961, Atlantic City 1980, and Other Stories 1983. Besides being an actor, Lancaster also did well as a movie director. Helped to start Hessel Lancaster, one of the first independent film companies in Hollywood that helped him bring a number of important films to on the screen. This showed Marty 1955, which won the Oscar for Best Picture and paved the way for more character-driven and realistic telling stories in American movies. He used his power to promote socially important themes and fight against suppression and unfair race relations. Lancaster was known for his off-screen fierce morals and strong social conscience. He spoke out in favor of one of the first people to criticize the Committee on Un-American Activities in the House and someone who supports liberal political ideas. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr. King Jr. spoke out against the Vietnam War and stayed involved in politics his whole life. Even though he was known for being very private, he was deeply liked by his friends for his smarts, skill, and strong dedication to both of his crafts, which he stuck to even in his later years. Lancaster kept acting in movies that made people think and let him show how grown he was. Thoughtful side of him, his work, and he got an Academy Award for Atlantic City nomination for an award at age 67, and what he did in Field of Dreams 1989 exposed him to a new group of people as the nice Moonlight Graham. He quit acting after having a stroke in 1990, disabled him in some ways and not being able to speak clearly, but his body of work was still a sign of his huge ability and long-lasting appeal. Burt Lancaster was a famous American actor, known for having a strong screen presence and athletic charm. Went through a complicated and full of events personal life marked by many weddings and many children. Well-known love ties over the course of his life. In his life, Lancaster was married 3 times. For each connection that played in its own way to his tapestry story about himself. His first marriage was to June Ernst in 1935. in the early years of his work life when he was still setting himself up in the world of show that began as a circus as a dancer and then as a new actor. June Ernst, a trapeze artist he met through his work with the circus, shared a love for performance art and the show business, but as his rose to fame in Hollywood in the 1940s, their paths began to leave each other. The stresses of a growing movie job, a lot of travel and the expectations of fame put a lot of stress on their relationship. Even though they stayed together, they have been together for more than 10 years. The marriage could not last in the end. The stress of these changes and they split up in 1946. There were no children born from the marriage, and finally turned into silence, having fun as Lancaster's fame grew more and more. Later that same year in 1946, Lancaster got married to Norma Anderson, one that would turn out to be both his longest and most important in terms of family life. Norma helped keep things stable in his life at the height of his fame and Hollywood fame. The pair had 5 kids. James, William, Susan, Joanna, and Lancaster really cared about Sile. Even though things are often rough in his personal plans and the constant needs of his job, their marriage went on for more than 20 years and were the player through some of the important times in his career life, including winning an Oscar for Elmer Gantry in 1960 and his part in socially aware movies. But despite they were married for a long time, Lancaster's is not without its problems, having affairs outside of marriage, long breaks making movies, and feeling more and more distance caused them to split up in the end. In 1969, but the marriage ended. After their split, Norma Anderson stayed in person, who was important to him even more so as the mother of his. Lancaster didn't get married again with his kids until a very late age. In 1990, he married Susan Martin, a woman a lot younger than offered to be his friend during the last few years of his life. Their relationship, though it was pretty short because to Lancaster's health getting worse, was by all of the accounts warm, and Susan was there for him through his tough times. He later fought heart problems and after a stroke that left him unable to move, in 1990, just a few months after their marriage. She was his wife until his death in 1994 by taking care of him and giving him emotional help in his last years. The marriage Lancaster had late in life gave her an amount of peace and comfort at home even after decades of complicated ties, own and public upheavals. Besides his legal marriages, Lancaster had a love life that was marked by a number of famous relationships that often got the attention of people in Hollywood. His was one of the most talked about, having a relationship with British star Deborah Kerr while they were filming of the 1953 work From Here to Eternity. They had great chemistry on TV. Electric and real, culminating in the famous beach scene that turned into one of the most famous love stories events in movie history. Off-screen, it was said that their friendship mirrored their passionate shows, even they were both married at the time. It was kept secret that the affair with people said Kerr was very upset. An image that will last on both artists. In addition to his link, it was said that Lancaster had an affair with Kerr, had a relationship with actress, a well-known movie star, Joan Blondell, in the 1930s and 1940s. Known for cleverness and charm, their time together was never confirmed in public in detail, but their close friendship and frequent making public appearances at Hollywood events led to rumors of a closer relationship. Friendship. Another affair that got a lot of attention was Shelley Winters is a strong-willed and feisty actress known for her own string of Hollywood love stories. Winters, who she is never afraid to talk about her past. In her book, she made a describing your relationship with Lancaster him as very angry and emotional, and sometimes having mentally distant traits that seem to describe many of his having good personal ties. Is the golden, the old-school Hollywood light dimmed into wanting to go back to the 1970s. Burt Lancaster was one of its most powerful screen presences, got together to share a secret. A memoir that wants to clear the air straight in the public's eyes. Lancaster was the hero with the strong jaw, romance swashbuckler and the moral rebel, but behind closed doors he said to see a side of Hollywood that not many people see. Dared to talk about with pen in hand and with anger in his heart. he began to write what would become one of the shocking unofficial leaks of the biggest stars in the entertainment business. He said it was the worst of all of them. Who survived? List 1. Kirk Douglas. The cruel giant. It was Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. Often worked together from shootout at the OK Corral for 7 days in May, but Lancaster's secret notes say that the friendship hit a strong dislike. He said Douglas was a man cut out of stone from desire and covered in ice, while everyone thought Douglas was a hero. Spartacus Lancaster is said to have seen a cunning liar who stepped on co-workers to get to the top. He would steal a part from his own son if it meant one more headline. Lancaster wrote that he said Douglas of treacherous betrayals in the back room, being put on a blacklist and using charm as a tool to destroy his rivals. Natasha Wood, the beauty with a Lancaster's disputed view of the secret. Natalie Wood was not weak in any way. She played ingenue on TV and in movies. She thought she was a master controller of people who are popular and have a knack for telling strong men what to do, he said. I have seen her experiencing emotional war between directors and co-stars against each other to get ahead. You could cry on cue during he said, an office or a bedroom, suggesting that she used her perceived fragileness, while her sad death is still a mystery. Lancaster hinted seeing the chaos she caused with a dark eye. 3. Mickey Rooney. The Mask of Mischief. Mickey Rooney was known to the people as the boy next door that everyone loves, but to Lancaster, he was a wild man with he said she had a short fuse and a darker side. That Rooney's good looks were just a cover for being mean, especially to younger players. He liked women and being a clown. Burt wrote about the shame he felt. Reports of Rooney making fun of extras, messing up scenes and enjoying the enemies. Rooney's many problems. Lancaster thought that marriages were not signs of bad luck in love but a pattern of being in charge and being left out. For she was known as the Diamond Queen. Drama. Elizabeth Taylor's name shone with style and drama, but Lancaster saw what was behind the violet eyes. She was like a storm wrapped in silk. Of changing a whole set into a field of war. She didn't just steal scenes where she stole souls, he wrote. He said that Taylor used her beauty and fame to intimidate co-stars, throw temper fits and hold directors hostage to her whims. Her rocky marriages were what stories are made of. And Lancaster hinted whose inner chaos often got in the way both projects and relationships. 5. Spencer Tracy was the cruel leader of the many people admire as a brilliant. Spencer Tracy, a moody actor, was in Lancaster's telling and unpredictable, and he blamed Tracy for use of often cruel force, angries and fights caused by booze, crew members being scared, and even abuse of the mind of co-stars. He could play heroes on the screen, but he was a bad guy in the. Lancaster said in the locker room. While many Tracy's actions because of his, Lancaster saw ability and a troubled soul. Only the harm he did in Wake Up. 6. James Stewart, the dark heart of the U.S. cutie pie. This might be the most shocking. James was on Lancaster's list because Stewart is known for having a muddy personality and known for their favorite parts in It's a Wonderful Life. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, D.C. was seen as the epitome of morality. Lancaster said it was a carefully built a mask that Jimmy Stewart smiled on, but he judged everyone based on it. Wrote, said to be a cold and rude man in Stewart's private room. Good morals and pride were in Lancaster's pulling tools of manipulation and how you see yourself. Marilyn Monroe, the detox angel to the world, saw Marilyn Monroe as the sad, a beautiful sign of weakness, but to Lancaster, she was a very bad thing. Talked about her as a needy black hole whose problems with drugs and sexuality drained everyone around her. He said Monroe used her fame to put things off. Power brokers are wooed by shows. Use pity against her. She made herself weak so that other people would have to written that he would carry her, and said how the behavior caused chaos for the leaders, players and even whole a studio. Errol Flynn, number 8, The Devil May Care. Lancaster wasn't shy about how desperate he was. When he wrote about Errol Flynn, says he was an attractive sociopath in clothes for pirates. He told wild parties, angry rants, and a trail of people who couldn't speak out because of money, and I was afraid that Flynn's adventures were often. Lancaster was laughed off as a rakish joke. They thought they covered up real evil. Flynn lived like there was no one or nothing around him. Nothing else did to him, so they didn't matter. Bing Crosby, the author of How Cruel, although Bing Crosby's voice was soft, serenaded millions of people. Lancaster described a spooky paradox: that voice was owned by an icy man, he said. Talking about how cold Bing is said to be in particular to his children, Lancaster brought up stories about Bing's iron-fisted being a mom and being distant on set. He could bedtime sing to everyone and then hit his sons with a whip behind closed doors. He wrote things later that sounded like abuse, proven by Crosby's own children. 10 Gary Crosby is the heir to Gary Crosby, Bing's son. Lancaster says that the bitter because of how mean his father was, and someone who turned mean himself. He had more than just scars on his body. Lancaster said he was angry as an adult. Gary is said to have yelled at those around him, keeping loops going of addiction, anger, and bitterness. Lancaster didn't see him as a bad guy from born, but as a sad example of inherited pain turned dangerous. 11. Hugh Jackman, the Ice King. A lot of people thought of Henry Fonda as a man of integrity and peace, but Lancaster saw or something else: emotional distance. He almost hurt life when he treated it like a jury that is clean and impartial. Cold. He wrote about Fonda's shy personality from Lancaster's point of view, not shyness but with disdain. He judged with a look that made others freeze in their tracks. To watch over even his kids. Lancaster claimed that he suffered from his lack of how Jane Fonda raises her children. Soon agreed on 12th Jane Fonda, the rebel with a cruel heart. Burt Lancaster saw Jane Fonda not once but twice, not only as a fiery political name but also as someone who is ready to give up anything: truths, connections, and even reputations for her, cause he saw her as calculating how to use action as both shield and sword. She made her weapons. Ideas that shaped the story, and silence dissipated. He wrote about her as someone who could be warm at times and very cold for the next. 13 Joan Crawford, the Iron Mother. No list of supposedly Hollywood stars' tyrants would not be the same without Joan Crawford. Lancaster said that she was an iron-willed and steely-nerved woman, someone who can lead a set with her glare alone. He accused her of scaring younger actors and abusing them, helping people and tricking the public how people saw her. She ruled with her eyebrows and her fists, he said, referring to the same mean parenting she gave her daughter. Christina later said that 14 Lucille Ball, the queen of power, even though she is loved for her funny. According to Lucille Ball, was a brilliant. Lancaster, a bully when the cameras are rolling. Lucy didn't just want to stop rolling. She wanted to own everything he had. She wrote as the leader of DeSolo allegedly micromanaged staff deals to cut costs they didn't know about and ran her business like a battleground. Lancaster said they could get as sharp as a needle. She used a whip when things didn't go her way. Whether these claims were true or not, being over the top or the result of the anger of a disappointed actor, is Burt Lancaster never published and is unknown. This biography, while he was still alive, if it exists, it's still hidden in a dusty file or a private farm, its findings ready to shake the roots of legend in Hollywood. But one thing is for sure: if even a small part of Lancaster's claims are true, really were the golden age of movies was built on more than just dreams, sins kept secret, and the shades of stars. In Burt's last few years, Lancaster had a strong life in the past. Presence in person and a powerful screen persona were slowly pushed to the background by a string of crippling health issues. Known for having a strong body and energetic shows at the height of while making movies, Lancaster had always kept up a physically hard way of life, which led to his fall in health. All the more important, however, as he got older, he started to have a number of serious health problems that slowly took away his strength and independence. Was one of the most important. Lancaster had problems with his health in the later years. Was atherosclerosis is a disease being marked by the hardness and making the arteries shrink because of the buildup of plaque. This long-term illness can stop the flow of blood and a lot more likely to get heart disease. Fires and hits for Lancaster. It turned into a dangerous and a life threatening illness over time. The 2 small heart attacks were caused by disease, which were very serious warnings about what his heart health is like. Even with these scary events, Lancaster kept living his life with honor and as much life as his. As things got worse, it would be possible in 1983 his health became very bad when he needed an emergency for coronary heart surgery called artery bypass. This is a big process that involves putting arteries or veins to get around blocked coronary vessels had to be fixed. Help his heart and to stop a possibly fatal heart attack event. The operation was big, and that show how bad his health had become. Even though he lived through the surgery and seemed to get better at first, he was hurt by what he went through. General toughness. Despite facing the health of Lancaster after this big surgery, things kept getting worse as the decade wore on. In 1990, he had a terrible stroke that had long-lasting and effects that changed people's lives. The stroke, he was partly paralyzed, which ending his ability to move around and live on your own, maybe even more. Too bad for a man whose voice had held viewers' attention in famous movies like Elmer and From Here to Eternity. Gantry. The stroke took away his being able to talk. The loss of speech was a very terrible blow to a talented person, someone who had depended on not only his body but on the way he sings. The way they talk brings personalities to life. After the stroke, Lancaster pulled out pretty much out of the public eye, no longer able to do the kinds of social or work life he used to have loved so deeply that he spent the rest of years of his life in mostly solitude, being cared for by family and medical business people. On October 20, 1994, the last part of Burt Lancaster's very interesting life came to an end. He died peacefully in his flat in the Century City neighborhood on the west side of Los Angeles because it is close to the movie business he had helped make for decades. His third and last cause of death, a heart attack, was the end of a long fight he had fought against heart trouble. He was 80 years old. Old people heard about his death, and a lot of people in Hollywood and among movie fans all over the world, as both fans and co-workers, remembered not only his many services to movies, but also the powerful energy and he brought focus to every performance. It was in his later years that Burt's life was marked by pain and silence. Lancaster's influence